All right, it's time to get into some law again, Canada. Yesterday's video seemed to, resonate with people. People really like the content because a lot of people don't know the law. They don't know the criminal code. So I'm going to read off a couple things from the Criminal Code of Canada. I want you to tell me what you think. Today we're going to talk about Section 122 of the Criminal Code, breach of trust by public officer. Section 122. Every official who, in connection with the duties of their office, commits fraud or a breach of trust, whether or not the fraud or breach of trust would be an offense if it were committed in relation to a private person, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 5 years, or B, an offense punishable on summary conviction, which means 2 years less a day. But if it's indictable, if they go by way of indictable, it's 5 years. So now we're going to go to Section 750 of the Criminal Code. And Section 750 of the Criminal Code, subsection 1 says this. Okay, where a person is convicted of an indictable offense for which the person is sentenced to imprisonment for 2 years or more and holds, at the time that person is convicted, an office under the Crown or other public employment, the office or employment forthwith becomes vacant. Understand that? 2, subsection 2 of 750. A person to whom subsection 1 applies is, until undergoing the punishment imposed on the person or the punishment substituted therefore by a competent authority or receives a free pardon from Her Majesty, incapable of holding any office under the Crown or other public employment, or of being elected or sitting or voting as a member of Parliament or of a legislature, or of exercising any right of suffrage. So let's talk about who has the authority to do these investigations. It's not the provincial police. It's not the municipal police. That falls under the mandate of the RCMP. Let's look at the last 8 years and how many scandals we've seen with this Prime Minister. Now, it went by way of the Ethics Commission and ethics violations and investigations, and the punishment for that is $1,000. When a guy's worth $375 million or whatever he's worth, what's $1,000 if that's the only punishment? That's antiquated, because back in the day when $1,000 meant something, it carried some weight, but it carries no weight today. So all that aside, let's talk about the criminality here. It is the job of the RCMP to investigate crimes within Parliament. And here we have Section 122, breach of trust, and all of the different scandals that he has been involved with. There are quite a few that could apply. And then if you go by way of Section 750 of the Criminal Code, subsections 1 and 2, it says that if convicted and he has more than 2 years to his sentence, his seat becomes vacated and he has to relinquish all authority over Canada. Let that sink in. Canada, we are the people. I've heard people advocate violence. That's not the way, because they know how to work with violence. They will use violence against violence. We have to come together as a community, as a nation, and demand that the RCMP do their job to investigate and let the chips fall where they may. If they do a full, frank, and fair investigation, then we have to accept the results of that. And if they don't do their job, because let's be honest, over the last few years, we've seen, especially with Commissioner Brenda Lucki, an absolute disregard for the rule of law. We have to make sure that they do their job. They're paid by the taxpayer, and we, the people, have a government that is by the people for the people. So let's come together as the people and lobby our MPs to call on the RCMP to do their job. We've not heard the House of Commons advocate that once, not even once. It's time that they start advocating that and saying that loudly. What do you think?